Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I will be chairing the meeting this afternoon. To my left is Miss Linda McFadden, and to my far left is Mr. Mark Boreski. The assessor this afternoon is Mr. Stephen Lobenstein, and our recording secretary is Miss Michelle Neepin. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible, and as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. The first matter on the docket this afternoon is located on Dupuy Avenue. Please come forward, and you'll be sworn in.
I did not.
Do you swear or affirm?
I affirm.
Can you state your full name, please?
Stephen Lobenstein.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
I do.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's okay.
Would you rather affirm or swear on the Bible?
Affirm.
Affirm? Sure. Can you state your full name, please?
Joey David Trache?
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Lobenstein, please proceed when you're ready.
Sure, yeah, the file number is 19726, the roll number is 0603184250. The assessed value is $185,000 for the roll year of 2020. I have a verbal recommendation for $145,000, which is $3.44 per square foot. This is applied to the land area of 42,074 square feet.
Sorry, can you repeat what that was per square foot?
Yeah, it's $3.44 per square foot.
344 square foot. Thank you. Mr. Trottier, do you accept that recommendation, or would you like to proceed with the hearing?
I accept it.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, sorry, it was 145,000.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, good afternoon. All right. Just 1 second for me to make a note. Okay, the next matter is located on Discovery Place. Anyone?
No, I don't think there's anybody here.
Okay. Yes, we'll, should we just proceed with it then?
No, we'll just get to the end. We'll deal with who's here. In case they come in late.
Okay, the next matter,
I think it's just in the class. Okay.
sorry, I'm just moving this one. The next matter doesn't have an address, so it's with roll number ending in 6000. JMT Holding?
There's nobody here.
No one's here, okay. How about 30 Nicholas Avenue? Do we have anyone here on that one?
Rather be sworn in or affirmed?
Sworn.
Sworn? Okay. Can you state your full name, please?
Michael Grandful.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Do you state your full name, please?
Daniel Thomas Knowles.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed when you're ready.
Sure. The file number is 191455. The roll number is 0603174010. The assessed value is $633,000. This is a land value, so the land area is 257,730 square feet. The zoning is M3, heavy manufacturing, and it's considered industrial vacant land. So turning to the next page, page 2, we can get a look at where the property is located off Marion, in between Nichols and Dupuy Avenue. And again, picture further down shows sort of overhead view of the property. There is an asphalt plant on the property. We are only assessing this for land value. We are not assessing the asphalt plant for any costs. So turning to page 3, you can see the zoning of the property, and also the definition of the zoning for the property. Page 4 has the cost summary. It shows that replacement costs new we do have on it for the asphalt, but we're obviously not using that. We're taking it out, so it's just a land value of $633,000. Turning to page 5. You can see the rent comparables. So the comparables are on Mission, Mazenot, Black Diamond, and Dawson. So 2 of them are in the same Boniface industrial park, and the other 2 are in Mission that are in fairly close proximity to the subject property. Further down, if you look at this down the comparison approach, so we're looking at sales of properties, so you can see the sales details. They sold for, the Mission one sold for $5 a square foot, and this one, if you look above at the land influences, it is considered contaminated soil. The next one on 330 Mazenot has no water or no sewer and sold for $3.80 a square foot in 2016, February 2016. Comparable 3 also had no water, no sewer when it sold, and sold for $3.70 a square foot. And comparable number 4 is on Mission. It sold for $4.08 in 2011. So this property is a little interesting. If you look further down to the land valuation on page 5, you can see that there is a 30% adjustment applied to it for a reduction of $271.89. We've applied this reduction because apparently this property is stated or basically marked for development of an interchange that's going to connect Marion and Dugald Road. Although this interchange has not yet occurred, and it was initially, I think, proposed, well, in 1988 was the last time I saw it. But anyways, there is a restriction to build on this property, so that is why we have put an adjustment on it for that reason. This property also has no water and no sewer as well. So anyway, so we've ended up with a value of $2.46 per square foot for an assessed value of $633,000. So page 6, you can get a look at the comparable one. This is the one that's on Mission Street, and this is the one that is contaminated soil. It's got the Shell plant across the street from it. Comparable 2, this one sold in 2016 for $3.80 a square foot, and its 690,456 square feet. The comparable 3, again, this one sold for $3.70 a square foot. It's 371,083 square feet. And comparable 4 does have water, does have sewer, but is almost adjacent from the property, although there is what looks like train tracks in between them. And this one sold in 2011 for $4.08. So just going forward onto page N, it's just the classification. Page 8 is the classification and liability. Page 9 is the Municipal Assessment Act excerpt. So we feel that the value of $633,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed.
Thank you very much. Do you have questions for the assessor?
We do. Have you inspected the property?
I have not inspected the property, no.
Okay. And you did mention that you are aware that there's restrictions placed on the property by the future Marion Archibald Goulet Dougal interchange?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's why we put the reduction on it, or the adjustment on it.
Okay. So, on the first page, actually, I just noticed this. The hearing dates that is on the first page at the top there says December 2nd. Just to be clear, it was always scheduled for the 4th, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't get anything
Sure.
mixed up. And the change in valuation methodology, so at the previous assessment cycle in 2018, it was noted that there was buildings that were added to the valuation, and we're fine with your explanation for the vacant land, but is it going to be, I just wanna confirm that this is gonna be valued like this going into the future, so next assessment cycle, we're not gonna add back anything, like we're valuing this vacant industrial land now and going into the future?
This has been changed to vacant industrial land. I don't see why it would be changed back, but as far as I'm concerned, this is what it's being valued as is right now.
Can you explain why it's being valued as vacant land only?
As vacant land only, I believe that at different times it's come to the board and it's been argued that it should be valued as vacant land, saying that the buildings on it that are there at the moment for the asphalt plant are actually buildings that can be removed very easily, and so it should only be vacant land.
Okay, yeah, no, we're fine with that, so we'll ignore that we have commented that in our brief, so we'll just ignore that going forward. We are fine with that. So flipping over to, we're gonna go straight over to the comparables that you have listed on page 5. So have you inspected any of these comparables themselves?
I have been out to a few of them, yeah, especially the ones out in St. Boniface Industrial Park.
Okay, so you're familiar with the sales, so I just have some questions about them.
Sure.
So comparable number 1 on Mission Street there, why is this property comparable to 30 Nicholas?
It's a similar location, somewhat similar square footage. It's got the M3 zoning, so that would be why it's comparable.
Okay, is this property serviced?
The service, yes.
Okay. Is this property accessible via paved road?
Yep.
Okay. Is it being held for expropriation that you know about?
Not to my knowledge, no.
And can you get a building permit on this property?
You can?
Okay. Are you aware of who the purchaser was for this property?
I do not have that information with me.
Comparable number 2 on 330 Mazenal. Could you explain a little bit of why this one is comparable
Sure, well,
to?
it's similar, it has no water, no sewer. It was basically bare land, I guess you could say. It was ready for development, but it had no water, no sewer at the time. Again, it's M3 zoned, it's in St. Boniface, so although it's not directly near the location, it is still in a similar area in comparison to the rest of the city. So that would be a comparable property.
Do you know what's on this site today?
That would be post-reference, so we're talking about the sale.
Do you know who the purchaser was?
Not to my knowledge, I don't have information.
Are you aware that this is the Parmalat milk processing facility?
Sure.
Okay. You're aware that this was sold as vacant but service land?
This, at the time of the sale, we have it as not serviced.
Are you aware of the agreement between Parnalot, the city of Winnipeg, the province of Manitoba,
No,
that this is sold as serviced land?
I'm not aware of that agreement.
There is an agreement. Okay, we answered the service question, so was this property accessible via paper road?
At the so, one second here. Just don't want to get the two mixed up here. At the time of the sale that I have here, it's not exactly serviced. There's not a paved road on it. As you can see in my pictures for comparable sale two, that is not a paved road. The road is there, it's defined in the picture, but there's no paving.
Okay. Are you aware if this property is being held for expropriation?
I'm not aware.
Okay. And you can, to your knowledge, get a building permit on this site?
To my knowledge, you get a building permit on this site, yes.
Do you know who developed the site?
I do not know who's developed the site now.
How could you not?
How would I know? It's not something I looked into since we're dealing with just land value right now.
Are you aware that the site was developed by the city of Winnipeg?
I am aware that this whole area is developed by city, if that's what you mean. The city of Winnipeg basically started the industrial, St. Boniface industrial.
Right, and would the city of Winnipeg be selling the land, serviced or unserviced?
This land was sold unserviced.
Would the city of Winnipeg be responsible for bringing roads, sewer, water, and shallow utility connections to that site?
Yep.
For the price that the purchaser paid?
They would be responsible for putting that in, yes.
And that would be included in the $165 per acre purchase price, would it not?
Well, I would believe so. It wasn't put in, but I mean the connection from the road.
Excuse me, can you repeat that? You believe it was or was not?
I don't know if it was or it wasn't, but the city
Is
is.
the city in the business of selling unserviced land?
The city is developing it. The city will put in roads. The city is gonna put in the sewers, but at the time of sale, it was not developed, is what I'm saying.
Weren't there, but was those services contemplated by the purchaser to be installed?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Comparable number 3. Fairly close to 330 Mazenon. So same questions. This site was, you're saying, was not serviced at the time and was not contemplated to be serviced given the purchase price.
The comparable?
Yeah, comparable number 3.
Oh, sorry, yeah. I thought you were saying comparable number 4, my mistake. Yeah, comparable number 3 was not serviced.
So the purchase price reflects unserviced land.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
Is this, the price that the city sets for selling their land, is it determined solely by market value or is it by legislation?
I believe this would be market value.
You're certain of that?
That's a question I don't know for sure, but I believe it would be market value, yes.
Are you aware of the council reports released by the city of Winnipeg that speak to the pricing structure roughly of how they arrived at this and the fact that it's serviced land?
No.
That comparable 2 and 3 were purchased as serviced land?
I'm not aware. No.
Okay. Comparable number 4, on Dawson Road. Why is this property comparable to 30 Nicholas?
Well, location, for one, it's pretty much directly across the street from it. Again, it's zoned M3. Yes, it does have services, but I would say that the square footage is similar as well.
Okay, but this property, you can access it by a paved road, because Dawson's a paved road, that's correct?
That is correct, yes.
And then the owner would be able to get a building permit on this
Yep.
property?
Yep.
Okay. I noted in here that this was sold as vacant industrial land. From the aerials that are shown, there was improvements and structures on the site at the time
Yeah.
of the sale.
No, but it was sold as land. They were gonna be demolished, which they were, so. They didn't have any value, the building value, so it was sold as.
How are you aware of that value?
I had it in the notes that I read, but I didn't bring them in today, so that's why.
So, are you aware they didn't demolish all of the buildings?
Nope. Not
So, if in your field notes or wherever those notes came from, that it was slated to all be demolished, but then they kept one, could you not assume that there's some sort of value then, potentially? It would be true, it's not true vacant land?
I would believe the buildings would have held no value in that, it was just vacant land sales.
And
I
that's-
don't know which building was kept, I don't know what it looked like it's even being used.
And how does the city obtain like that information about like the specific details about the sale that the potential buyer assigns zero value to it?
Oh, well, we get sales mailers that might dictate that, so we would call and talk to them as well if we have questions about the sale itself, so.
And they would have, that's when they would have told you
Correct.
verbally or via the mailer that they assign $0 value to the improvements?
Absolutely.
And to the bottom of the page there on your page number 5, the 30% adjustment, you had stated, just to be clear, that because the owner of the subject property can't build on it, and it cannot be issued a building permit, the 30% reduction was then put on.
Yeah, for the restriction on it.
Okay. So where does the 30% come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. I looked into that myself, and the assessor that put it on it has retired since then, but I'm not too sure why it would just be 30% or not 20% or 50%, so unfortunately I can't answer that question. But I
Okay, so there's no basis for.
there probably is a basis on it, but unfortunately he didn't leave really a map as to why he did it like that.
So is there any reason that it shouldn't be 80%?
I guess there's no reason why it shouldn't be 80 or 20, I'm not too sure. It's something that I definitely want to look into and figure more about.
That, I just find that's an important piece of this, like this becomes almost the crux to it, because this is the crux of this property, is the restriction placed on it that nobody can build on, it can't do anything when it's being held for
I don't know if maybe
recreation.
this is agreed on before.
It would,
So we've never agreed to it because we've never seen it before, that's why we're
Yeah.
asking the question.
Yeah, no, and that's fair, and if I could answer your question for it, I would. I want to find out myself, and that's something I'm going to investigate.
so I guess here's a question for you about the 30%. So in 2018, both parties, the 2018 general assessment, both parties, the city of Winnipeg and the owner of the property, agreed on a valuation of $354,000. At the time, the property was originally assessed at $580,000. That drop from $580 to the agreed upon value by the city of Winnipeg and the owner is greater than a 30% reduction. Now the property is valued at $633,000.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be similar in proportion to that? Like, how did the city, with relation to this 30%, go from an agreed upon $354,000 to $633,000?
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, both of those initial ones, the 500, and you said was it 60,000 or 80,000 in 2018?
The 580,000
80,000,
roughly,
okay, so that was model driven, and then you guys agreed upon 300 and
354,000.
354,000. Now this cycle as well, this was model driven to raise it up to 633,000. So the model, that's the value the model put on it.
Okay, but would it not be fair then to say that this 30% is not actually a 30%, it's probably in the neighborhood of 70%, because at the previous assessment, both parties agreed and did not appeal it, that it should actually be from the model, at that time, 580,000, down to 354. Would that not be a better representation of the discount that should be applied to this property?
It's possible, I guess, yeah.
Okay.
Sounds close to 45%, right?
Yeah. Cool. Sorry?
I was
Yeah.
asking a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Kev.
Would you say the value of M3 industrial land in the city of Winnipeg from 2011 to 2017, has it gone up or gone down?
I would say in general, across the city of Winnipeg, we've seen land values rise in terms of the M3 industrial values. I would agree that they probably have risen a little bit as well. But what's the percentage or the number, I don't know, I don't have any of that
But
information.
definitely, the trend would be up.
I would say
In
the
your
trend,
opinion,
I would say the
would
trend,
be
the
up.
trend would be up, yeah. With most industrial properties in the city of Winnipeg, the trend is up.
So if you look at your comparable number 4 on Dawson Road, M3, and we've gone through it and you stand by the fact that this is a direct comparable, sold for $177,941,000 per acre.
Mhm.
right, in 2011.
Yeah.
And the most current sale at 500 Black Diamond Road, which you have again reconfirmed is a directly comparable sale, sells for $164,913.
Sure.
Is that trend up or down?
Well, I think you also have to look at the size of the land area. You have to deal with economies of scale. This is quite a bit larger than the, comparable number 4, so that would make a difference as well.
So then generally the trend then isn't necessarily up. It could be down.
You're comparing two sales. There's a lot of other M3 industrial properties in the city of
So
Winnipeg.
why would you not brought those forward?
Well, these are the ones that I felt are best comparable to your subject property.
Okay, so if the trend is then downward, based on the evidence that you brought forward, and our assessment's gone from 350 to 633, how can you justify that 45-50% increase?
I never said that the trend was downward. That's what you stated, and.
But your evidence suggests it's downward.
Yes, because our model is suggesting that it should go up, because our model is based on more comparable properties than just the 4 you see today in front of you.
Why wouldn't you bring more comparable properties then?
Well, I brought 4 that I felt were good comparable properties for this subject.
But would you agree now they're not necessarily showing the correct trend upwards?
Again, I don't really think that 4 properties create a trend.
Thank you.
On page number 6, and then flipping to the top of number 7, that appears to be the same parcel. Is that correct?
I think you're actually correct. The parcel, it should be outlined in red for, yeah, it's the one below. Number 3, the parcel below it is the one that's on Black Diamond.
Okay. Has the city, to your knowledge, confirmed the alignment for the Marion Archibald Goulet Duggold interchange?
You know, I've looked into that, so I was questioning that myself. I checked the major projects happening in the city of Winnipeg right now, and that didn't seem to be on there. They recently did a study to help improve the traffic on Marion and Duggold in 2017. The results, from what I know, hadn't come out yet, so I don't know if if it's been approved. Like, I believe it was in 1988 or 1980s when it was first brought forward, so nothing has been developed on there since. Again, it doesn't seem to be on its major project list, so I don't know.
Okay, so it's fair to say that the city hasn't decided absolutely one way or absolutely the other. It still might be in some sort of limbo.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely not under construction right now, so.
Are you aware of any properties within the close vicinity to the subject property that have been either held for expropriation, acquired due to the potential interchange, or, somewhere around those, like acquired versus expropriated?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
So if there was a property that was acquired or expropriated within the close vicinity to the subject property, do you think would support the fact that there's potentially an interchange scheduled to go through that area?
Would that be the reason, it's an interesting question, because would that be the reason why it was purchased?
Okay, so you're saying that okay, fair point. If the city stated that they're expropriating or acquiring a subject property within the area of the subject property, would it be fair then to say that there is still plans to have a future interchange through there? If the city is actively acquiring it
If
now?
they purchased specifically for that reason,
Yeah.
then for that interchange,
Yeah.
then of course that's fair, if that's the reason why it's going through, but I haven't seen anything that says that's happening, so.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Borowski?
A little more clarification on the photos, please.
Sure.
Looking at the photo of the subject property at the top of page 2, I see where it is outlined in the heavy purple line there.
Yep.
I see Duggold Road designated in the upper corner there.
Yep.
You've been referring to a interchange between Marion and Wood Street and Doss.
And Dougal, I believe it is. It's actually running.
How does that,
Yeah,
where
it's-
is that?
I don't actually have the, I didn't even know about this until I looked onto the brief of the appellants here, but if you look on their page, well, it's not a page number, but it's in their appendices, and they have it outlined in purple and yellow. You can kind of see how it's supposed to work. So it's supposed to, looks like it runs from basically Dougal and Dawson through the property and where the interchange is gonna take place. And then runs down the two parallel streets there.
I'm having trouble relating this to what I'm seeing on your material. So down in their material, in the bottom right-hand corner, I see it's Depuis Avenue.
So, yeah, if you hold it like this, mine is probably a better relation.
On your photo, Duval Road
Dougal
is-
joins at Dawson at the top right corner.
joins Dawson. Is that where Duval begins?
Begins or ends, yeah, I believe so.
One way or the
Yeah.
other. So the interchange on your photo is
Yeah, in the purple area on the property.
there,
Yeah.
connecting Marion?
It looks like they would interchange it, as you can see, it wraps around and comes down. Would connect Marion through.
Down to, okay, it
Yeah,
doesn't,
down.
not directly.
Well, then
but-
again, it looks like they have the road running right through here, so they would they expropriate all this land along here as well. So this is basically running all the way past the property, through the houses. So it looks like they'd be taking a lot of land out.
And consequently, that appears to be also affecting this property.
I tried to, it was hard for me to relate with this picture to that property, but it could very well relate to that property. As you can see, it doesn't really extend past.
If I'm correct, when referring to this picture, to clarify the confusion about this one and the preceding picture, you said that this bottom one on page 7 was Black Diamond?
No.
No.
Sorry.
Which one is?
Black Diamond and the one in Mazenode got mixed up, so. Comparable 3 is Black Diamond. I have it, the outlined in red is the Mazenode one. And what should be outlined in red is the bottom picture in comparable 3.
Oh, in 3,
Yeah.
it's this lot.
Right.
Not that one.
Right, yeah, sorry, I just.
That is the one that is actually called Mazenot.
Yeah, the top one
Okay.
is Mazenod and the bottom one is Black Diamond.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this triangular one is
Dawson.
14 Dawson.
Yep.
Okay, now I've figured out what we're talking about, thank you. At least for the time being, those are my questions.
And thank you very much, Ms. McFadden.
Those are all the questions I have.
My questions have been asked and answered already.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll proceed with your presentation, please.
Thank you.
So as Mr. Lovenstein had mentioned, we're here today to speak about 30 Nicholas Avenue. So a little bit of history about this project, the subject property, sorry. Since 1988, this property has been held for, has been under limited use and restrictions placed on it due to the potential future Marion Dugald Goulet interchange. That's slated to go right through the subject property and through some of the areas. So, as you can see from table 1 on page 2 of my brief. Okay.
Someone's angrily getting their coat. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. Page 2, table 1, as you can see, we've been here at the municipal board back and forth since 1994. And in column 2, the assessed value under appeal, and then column 3, the revised assessed value. As you can see, we constantly see this valuation be driven up and then reduced back down through the Board of Revision once the information that I'm going to present here today is made clear. So fast forward to 2018, to the last assessment cycle, the owner of the property and the city of Winnipeg were able to come to an agreement and agreed on $354,000 for the valuation of the property, and neither party appealed to the municipal board. So the breakdown of that, and of which we did agree on the valuation, so the breakdown I've included at the bottom was $273,000 for the land, and the improvements were at $81,000, arriving at a valuation of $354,000.
Important just to add a note, see in 2016, the Board of Revision made the decision at 354, and the city then bumped it to 580, and the Board of Revision then supported their number of 354. Just clearly indicating that because of the impediments attributable to this particular piece of land, there really shouldn't be any change in valuation.
So fast forward another 2 years to where we are today, talking about the 2020 general assessment year. Nothing between 2018 on the property has changed till today. We have no new additions, the roads haven't been paved, it is still not serviced, and as the assessor supported, there has been no definitive action, release, policy, commitment by the city, or a major project announcement by the city of Winnipeg that would speak to one way or another that this project is still not held for expropriation. So de facto by that, there has been no decision made. The decision from the early 90s and late 80s still stands that this property has the potential to be held for expropriation for the future interchange. Somehow, however, though, given that nothing has changed in the last 2 years, the assessment value has increased over 78% to $633,000 from an agreed upon $354,000 with no market justification. So if we go to page 3 of my brief, and I won't get too much into the property description in the neighborhood, but it's 5.9 acres zoned M3. It is currently unserviced, and as the assessor mentioned, all the improvements and fixtures on the property, including a mobile office and the mobile asphalt batch plant, are mobile. They are meant and designed to be taken off-site at such time as they would be required. So the temporary use expands for this entire property. There's also some gravel piles which can be easily moved. So the property is situated at the end of 2 dead-end streets, and it's bounded by a rail line on the north side, Nicholas Avenue to the west, and to the east by Dupuy. So the concrete surface of the road on Dupuy, which is actually how you access the site, stops several hundred yards before the actual site. If that's distracting, I'm gonna hold on for a second.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Okay. I guess just
I will continue. So the neighborhood that this is in, this would be considered like sort of the old industrial St. Boniface area, so it's well recognized as some of the heavier uses in the city. It used to be slaughterhouses, packing houses, feedlots, livestock processing, junkyards, so this is in the heavier industrial area of the city for sure. So the roads accessing the site are at some times actually impassable. Because they're not paved. I've driven on farm roads that are in much better condition, and you're able to actually traverse it with a car. This one, you need a truck to access the site. So the site restrictions and limitations, as the assessor had mentioned as well, I'm going to get into with a little bit more detail. So on Appendix 1, which is page 8 in my brief here, I'm going to flip to that for a second, and I'll draw your attention to a map. So just after page 8, so page 8 is the introduction to Appendix 1. The first page after that is the letter from the City of Winnipeg, and this is the last communication that we have had with the City of Winnipeg, and in this letter it states that the property, as you have stated, would be required in the event that the city should decide to proceed with what is currently a long-range transportation plan, and this being the interchange. The next page, which has a map with a outline in pink. The big black, the border black area is the subject property, and the pink is the area that's been identified for potential expropriation. And if we flip one more page, that is the outline of the yellow. The yellow is our property. And I have one interesting piece in here that was not able to go in our brief, but the assessor brought it up, and I feel that this would be pertinent information. It was mentioned that if the City of Winnipeg stated on public record that they are acquiring property in the area and actively acquiring property in the area for this interchange, that the restrictions should hold. And the city, in June of the early 2000s, issued a council report stating that the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development has been advised that the city requires the property located on the east side of Nicholas, north of Charlotte Street, as outlined on miscellaneous plan 11158 for the proposed Marion Dugald connection project. I have a map as well as those council minutes if anybody would like to see them, and I have enough copies for everybody.
That would be submitting new evidence. If you want to submit, you have to show it to the assessor first, and he would have to
Take a look.
take a look at it.
It's fine.
Thank you very much.
So these are threes. And the map is all the same.
So you put the last one on this place. What's awkward for you? Thank you.
Okay.
Please continue.
So on your map, I'm gonna start with the map. So the area that's outlined in black is the subject area. Actually, is there? There's the map. The area that's in a thicker black line, there's numbers contained in it, 1, 2, and 3. The lots number 1 and 2 in the early 2000s were sold off. And in July of 2001, when this cleared, you'll notice in the sheets that I had given you, and I've highlighted the text, I did include the first page, so that page number 1 is just so you're able to see that this is from the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development. But if you flip to page 2, which is page 71, I didn't print the other 70 pages. The highlighted text in here speak to, and the third paragraph, Public Works authorized the director of PP&D to negotiate the acquisition of the proposed Lot 1, which is Lot 1 shown on the map, which property is required for the proposed Marion Dugald connection. Right above Lot number 1 on the map there is 30 Nicholas, which is the subject property.
Shown as part of lot 17 and 14.
Correct. So where plan number 3197 is, and PT 14 and PT 17, that collectively makes up the 5.9 acres that is the subject property. As you're able to see, and if you cross-reference the map that I just handed out with the map that we referenced with the pretty pink outline in Appendix 1, those areas and the triangle below PT 17 lines up directly with Lot 1 that was acquired. This further supports the long-range planning and transportation plan of the city of Winnipeg to potentially, expropriate this area as it becomes available for the interchange.
So the city, through its own records and its own minutes, clearly demonstrates that the site is going to be impaired and will be restricted from development because of the future interchange.
So what this does is this further supports the fact that this site is unable to be given a building permit because it's being held for expropriation. However, in the event of a sale, this land would either be expropriated or acquired by the city of Winnipeg, or if it did actually go to the open market, would be sold to the caveat that it's unable to build on, therefore rendering the value as a temporary usage. And given what's on there today, there isn't many other users and uses in the city that would be able to continually live in a perpetual temporary environment. So it'd be applicable for storage yards, mobile asphalt plants, which restricts the potential purchasers of this property significantly.
Which, with all due respect to the assessor, does not make his comparables comparable. This is a very distressed piece of property, and again, I find it, my 30 years experience, very, very difficult to understand the rationale and how we can get a 78% increase in value when the conditions of the property haven't changed and there's no market demand for it. So it continues to boggle my mind.
So if we flip over to, we talked about the restrictions on the property, and I hope that my map and the council minutes further conveyed that, so I'll move on. If we flip over to page 4, I have included in the appendices in Appendix 2 actually, which is on page 9, the servicing plan from the city of Winnipeg that shows that the services do not extend up to the property line. So in page 9, there's some, the page after page 9, there's another map with some colors on it, which show the LDS in green, the wastewater sewer in pink, and the water main in blue, not extending up to the property line. So there is no running water on the site. The washrooms are portable toilets, so the staff there, the office staff as well as the trucking staff, they use portable washrooms for the year, and then in the wintertime the plant shuts down. So as I had mentioned, and this is on page 4, the subject property is zoned M3, and it's used for an asphalt production plant. It's a mobile. Given the restrictions on this property and given the unique nature of it, with it being held, within the path of expropriation, as Michael had mentioned, it's somewhat appropriately labeled as distressed industrial land. So finding comparables within the city of Winnipeg that have these same kind of restrictions and hindrances is difficult. However, in October of 2017, and I show this at the bottom of page 4 outlined in red, a parcel sold very close to St. Boniface Industrial Park Phase 2, just to the west of that actually. And this property has some extreme access challenges, as well as it has no services. So the developers and the future developers of this property have some uphill battles that they have to face, because they have to establish access, they have to establish a servicing agreement, and they have to establish a connection access, as well as drag in all the services, because nothing is close and nothing is near to this parcel. I understand that it is a little bit larger. However, given the challenges that are faced by this property far outweigh orders of magnitude, economies of scale, anything like that. It's really the challenges here that speak to the selling price of this property, which was $18,817 back in October of 2017. So I'm gonna ask you to flip to Appendix, to Appendix 3, which is on page 10. So Appendix 3 on page 10 begins outlining a vision for this property. And a caveat, and a big difference between this property and the subject property, is that this property can actually be developed. This property is not being held for expropriation. There is a plan. So as you flip through these couple pages, there's some verbiage on what this might look like. But 3 pages in, there's a nice colorful map here that has some blue and green, and that shows the area as it can be potentially developed. So a buyer in the marketplace is willing to pay $18,000 for land that has no services, has trouble being serviced, has access problems, all the same as the subject property. However, this land can actually be developed, which is the big difference. So this is why we're trying to establish the market value for distressed industrial land at the $18,817 mark. Another interesting point which we can look at on this picture is the red line coming down from Mazenod Road, near the bottom of the page, outlined in blue there, is the Parmalat facility that the assessor used as a comparable for market value. So as you can see, this is in the same general area. However, the difference is that the comparable that was used by the city is actually service land and was sold as such. And it is on public record that even if it was not, the land might not have had pipes in the ground when it was sold. However, it was sold with a condition of sale being that it would be serviced. They're in fact rendering the land essentially serviced, because the deal would have fallen through if the land was not serviced.
You also have a distinguishing difference. You have someone that is buying raw serviceable land for $18,000 an acre, and you have someone that's paying $18,000 an acre, and then you have somebody else paying $165,000 an acre. One would suggest that alone, you're getting something for $165,000. You're not getting the same dirt, right? I can speak to this knowledge because I originally was supposed to be, Terracon Development was supposed to be the partner with the city of Winnipeg in the development of this land where Parmalat was going. I was intimately involved in the negotiation of that sale of that land, and $165,000 an acre included sewer, water, shallow utilities, and road access. Now, the city of Winnipeg decided to cut us out, and are now in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit over it, but doesn't preclude my seat and position at the table, and I was the lead on the development of that particular parcel of land. Same with the Diamond Black Road, same team's transportation. I was involved in that negotiation as well, and that too contemplated fully serviced industrial land. Hence the $165,000 an acre. They expected to get something with it, and they expected roads, pipes, utilities. At $18,000 an acre, the comparable that we're presenting has nothing. It doesn't have access to, it has access, like you have the pipes, you gotta bring them along. It doesn't have an access point for the road, you gotta bring it along. It doesn't have shallow utilities yet, it's gotta be brought along. And at the end of the day, you look at what the market is and who's prepared to pay for what. Here's somebody that has nothing and is prepared to pay $18,000 an acre for it. I think it's more representative of our piece of property than Parmalat and Team Strike. Sounds like a preacher there.
So on to page 5, I just detail some of the challenges experienced by what is commonly referred to as the Seminic land, and that's the land that I outlined in red on page 4, the 112 acres. So it can actually be developed. It has its challenges and difficulties with having nothing there, as Michael had said, but it can be developed. So the owner, the now owner and potential buyer at the time was willing to pay $18,000 for nothing in the hopes of getting something. The change in valuation methodology, this is the part that I'm not going to speak to. This is, in the previous assessment cycle, we had assigned some value to the temporary offices, and I believe just the temporary offices. I didn't know that the valuation methodology was changing. so I just flagged it in here. However, we're not going to delve into that anymore, so we're fine with it being valued as vacant industrial. Therefore, on to page 6. It's the opinion of the owner that the market influences which affect the other properties have no effect on the subject property. The comps put forward have services, they can be developed. They all can be accessed via a paved road, they all have future potential, and they can all be resold for the uses that are permitted under the zoning applicable to that parcel. The subject property does not share those same benefits. We cannot have permanent structures, we do not have servicing, we do not have washrooms on the site, and it is restricted by the long-range transportation planning of the city of Winnipeg. Therefore, we feel that it's unreasonable to increase the valuation by almost 79%, given the restrictions that are in place. Respectfully, we present the calculation at the bottom of page 6, with the land portion being 5.9 acres times the $18,817 put forward by our comparable, and we would assign $0 to the improvements for a total of $111,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lovenstein, do you have questions?
Just a few questions. Speaking to the new evidence that you submitted, the plan and the minutes, this is from 2001. Is this the same plan that was in 1988? Is this is the exact same plan that they proposed in 1988?
I'm not sure of the plan, all it came with was the map.
Okay.
So the parcel 1 and 2 transacted, and the city carved off parcel 1, as it says here, for the future use of transportation.
For a Mario Dougald connection, it says.
Yep.
But like, the question I have is, would that connection that they're stating here still run through the subject property?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's gone by a couple different names. It is the Marion Dougald Goulet Archibald interchange, also referred to as the Marion Archibald interchange, also referred to as the Marion Dougald interchange. It is all the same. It's all the same interchange.
Same project.
Okay. Speaking of the property that they purchased, was that vacant industrial land that they purchased at that time?
I believe there is improvements on parcel number 2. Parcel number 1 has a junkyard on it right now.
So they bought it for $85,000, 42,444 square feet. It states at the top of, well, it says page 72 here. So that'd be about $2 a square foot. So that would be a fair value for the city to purchase a subject property at if they had to expropriate it.
Well, this is expropriation though. Expropriation proceedings are different than assessment and valuation.
Sure. But I'm asking if you feel that'd be fair value for your properties.
We don't have an opinion on that.
Okay. In terms of the services of the property, there's none running up Dupuy, but on Nicholas, there are services running all the way up past the property. So you guys could connect water and sewer to it from there?
Well, we'd have to enter into a servicing agreement with the city of Winnipeg.
And
that's what's-
require a permit, which we won't get.
Yeah, I don't, but it is still possible to
No, it's
have
not.
services. on that
Absolutely
side.
not. No, unequivocally, not
Oh,
possible.
It's not physically possible?
No.
Okay. Do you feel economies of scale play into land valuation at all?
No.
No, they don't?
I've been doing this for 30 years and I don't know what economies of scale mean
No?
when it comes to land value.
The challenges presented by the Seminyak land, respectfully, are much more challenging and would present the buyer with many more hurdles than an economy of scale would be. So if you have these types of hurdles that are present on both properties, your economies of scale fall through. You're just buying land at that point.
So at the moment, though, you would agree that you don't know if this interchange is gonna happen? Although it's been proposed, it may not happen, it may happen.
It's
right?
immaterial if it happens or not. We have a restriction on our property as a result of a potential development. Not knowing is probably worse than knowing. If we knew, we could deal with it.
Have you,
We were living right now in purgatory. We can't develop it, we can't use it, we can't sell it.
have you approached the city about it? Have you asked them to remove the
The last communication that is given to us by the Director of Public Works and the Director of PP&D was that letter. They have not issued us another letter.
That letter was from 2001, or was that recent?
No, the letter that is contained in our appendix number 1, saying that this property is being held for future master planning.
It was written in 1988, and the city has been silent on it ever since.
So the city hasn't mentioned anything to you guys since 19?
Well, they haven't issued a letter contrary to the fact, no. If that's what you're asking, no.
No,
They have not told us that we can build on it.
I'm just asking if you've
And
contacted them.
Nor have we been allowed to get a permit.
Yeah, I'm just asking if you've contacted them since 1988 to find out if you can have the restriction removed.
That's a good question.
We tried to ask last assessment appeal, because they said that there was a contradicting to what was in here, and we asked that a letter be produced and sent to us by the Director of Public Works and the Director of PP&D, and.
When did we upgrade the plan? We upgraded the plan
In 2014.
2014. In 2014, we were not
Issued
issued a
yeah.
permit to have bathrooms.
Okay, those are all my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goreski?
Just pursuing this point of no economy of scale, the 70th property is 112 acres, the subject is 5.92. You're stating that there would be no economy of scale at play in potential sales purchases.
I don't know what
of those
economies
two.
of scale mean. And the reason I put that out to you is that, a meter of concrete costs $1,000. So the fact that I have to put 30 meters in or 300 meters, it's still $1,000 a meter. So where's my economy of scales? I don't get anything, there's no benefit in being big when you're developing.
That's my only question.
Thank you, Ms. McFadden.
So in 2016, you reached an agreement with the city of Winnipeg at 354, which was then again reiterated in 2018.
Sorry, it was the 2018 general assessment.
Right.
That the parties came to an agreement on 354.
354.
Yes.
And in 2020, you're asking today for 111,000.
That is correct.
What do you say or what would you propose has happened to actually impair the value of this land by 46%?
Well, the value, because of the limited comparables that exist for this property,
Mhm.
it was always off of, well, this is kind of similar. And that's kind of where we got to where we were. There hasn't been a true distressed value of industrial land that is comparable since then, since we started then. So this is almost a correction, a readjustment. And then there's also the change in valuation methodology.
Go into purely land versus land and improvements. And that was a direction that was given to us by the city, and we heard here today in evidence. And when you look at what the market value is and the sale comparables that are available, it's 18,000 times 5 acres. So that's where the number comes from.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My questions have already been asked and answered. So thank you very much. Is there a need for summary?
I have no summary.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Mr. Name, I was sliding in.
Daniel Mills. M.I. double S.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we will go back to the property on Discovery Place.
Just give me a second here.
Absolutely.
Bring up this-
Take your time.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you,
afternoon.
everyone. Take care. Thank you.
All right. So the Discovery Place.
Are you here from that?
No, actually not.
Oh,
This-
sorry.
This is Kent Seelan, who
Oh,
is a new
excuse me.
member of the board.
Oh, sorry.
I was doing training with Kent and the other fellow who's going to the board this morning, and he is sitting in just to see what we do.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Where are we at right now in our agenda here? Topic?
No, we have two matters left, so we will ask the assessor to go through.
Oh, okay. Close to it.
Have we decided to hear
Right. I forgot. No, we should do that. Sorry. going to take a short recess.
Oh,
We'll now call this meeting back to order. The board has met and decided we will hear the remaining two matters on the docket. So please proceed with the property on Discovery Place.
Okay, that would be file number 191268. The roll number is 14100018400. The assessed value is $630,000. It's vacant industrial land, the zoning is M3, and the land area is 86,970 square feet. Page 2 has a view of the subject property. The property itself actually has a building on it, which is interesting considering it is vacant industrial land. But what has happened is that we have taken the building on the left side of the picture is holds the income value to the property, including the part that extends over the other parcel. So we have deducted the land value of the vacant land parcel from the income of this of the parcel beside it to come up. So that's how the parcel beside is valued. So this one is just valued on vacant industrial land. Let me get another view on page 3. And as we move along, page 5 has the cost valuation summary. I think, my mistake, I think I said the zoning was M3, it's actually M2, as stated on page 4. Page 5 is the cost valuation summary. Page 6 are the comparables. They're on Burroughs, Innsbruck, and Hutchings, which are all relatively close to the subject property. They range from $4.63 a square foot up to $8.68 a square foot. The subject property has a rate of $7.24 a square foot for the value applied to the 86,970 square feet for a value of $630,000. Page 7 has the comparable sales, pictures of them. So you can see the first one is on Burroughs. The second sale is on Innsbruck. The third sale is also on Innsbruck, and the fourth sale is on Hutchings. Page 9 has the classification and liability, and page 10 has the Municipal Assessment Act. So we feel this property should be confirmed at $630,000.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bresky, do you have any questions for the assessor?
So, this part of this property, portion of the building, is on a separate roll entry, is that correct?
That's correct.
Why is it two roll entries?
That's a good question. I looked into it, and there weren't unfortunately many notes on it, so I don't know why. It actually should probably just be on one. But nonetheless, this is how it's broken up at the moment.
If this was to go up on the market, would it go up only one of the two roll entries at a time?
There's no way it could go up as one of only the two roll entries at a time.
Makes it difficult to value one part opposed to the other. But you've attributed the whole building then, if I take it correctly?
Yes.
You've attributed the whole building to the bigger lot, and we're just dealing with the land attributable to the smaller lot, and that lot alone. Okay, all my questions.
Mr.
And
Webb?
I have no further questions.
Nor do I. Sorry, I'm just making a note. I'm not trying to be very slow. Okay. Okay, and the next property, it doesn't seem to have an address associated with it, but the roll number ends in 6,000.
Yep, okay. The file number is 191430. The roll number is 0900487600. The assessed value is $295,000. It's vacant industrial land zoned M2, and the land area is 47,323. You can look at subject property on page 2. You can see it outlined in red on the top. I took the liberty of taking a picture in 2018 and a picture in 2016. As you can see on page 3, you can see it has now been, basically the raw land has now been prepared for development for, I guess, 2018, 2016. You can see they are just working on it on page 3. Page 4 has the zoning. Page 5 is the cost summary. Page 6 is the comparables. The comparables are on Marion, Niagara, Mission, and Mission. So they are close to the area in the sense of J Street is in Transcona. These are close to Transcona. The rate, we have $6.23 a square foot. The comparables range from $5.05 up to $9.13 a square foot, and the sales dates range from March of 2012 up to January 9th of 2018. Again, we can take a look at the comparables on page 7. You can see comparable 1 and 2 on page 7, and comparable 3 and 4 on page 8. Page 9 has a classification liability, and page 10 the municipal assessment act and insert. So feel the value of $295,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Boreski?
No questions.
Ms. McFadden?
No question?
Nor do I. Thank you very much. I will now close this hearing.